Hello, Face. Good morning. Turnaround Tuesday. How's everyone doing today? We have Paul Franco with us today. He's going to be talking about what he does on the European crossover. So stick around. He'll be on right after Blake, and Blake's having some internet issues. I want to start off with the yen. You know, it's very unusual in FX for gaps to come into play, because of the nature of the 24 hours, 6 days a week. So most of the gaps happen over the weekend. So far, the yen has been unable to fill it. See the potential of an attempt, possibly, if we get an ABC. Now, don't trust my counts. I know just enough about Elliott Wave to be dangerous, okay? But I'm thinking, because of this, S&Ps, as long as we hold yesterday's lows, you have to respect it for another pop. What a great call by Blake yesterday after me, when I said people were trapped, longs were trapped. I didn't think we'd get this much of a recovery, and then we had the sell-off in the after hours on this 4-hour candle, and we've recovered here. So back over this 29.25 level, we could get another high. There'll be massive glaring divergence. I know a lot of people are talking 3,000. A buddy of mine talking 30.20 in there, just a little bit over 3,000. David Brady showed a great chart where there's confluence up there, so we'll see. One thing I can say for certain, and there are very few things you could say for certain, but you know, under yesterday's low, there's big problems. Also, just keep in mind, by Friday, so 2-week off numbers, they really, you could trade off them, but what they're meant for is weekly closes. So closes under 29.39, which we didn't quite get to yesterday. That's a 2-week off number in the S&P. But let's see, 28. Yeah, it got to 35, so still underneath the off number. So I have a lot of, I see one way or the other. The dollar seems that way to me as well. Not bad action off of here, but you know, pretty weak action when the S&Ps were lower. No flight to quality into the dollar, that's for sure. So that's the dollar. Here's crude. Okay, so crude rallied to initial resistance yesterday and came off pretty good, only 38% back. I'm thinking if the S&Ps have another run in them, that we'll get another run in the 2 Cs, that we won't just break to new lows from here, that we may get something like this from wherever. Again, a B wave comes in, get another push up. And similar in copper. Copper went, I mean, if you're a classic technician, yesterday was a classic sale up here at 284. That was, you know, important support that it broke down from right here, this low. So we'll see about the 2 Cs. I'm bearish both. I didn't sell this initial pop here, and thinking that just like crude, if we get another risk on move in the market, that we could have another one of these in copper that could take us up towards, I have confluence with a moving average and a fib and an off number. You may want to write it down. Probably looks unlikely that's going to get there, but it's 289. So that's where I would be an aggressive seller should that unfold. I want to talk about our company. So, you know, we really are a team. So Blake's having internet issues, and Paulie steps up. To see Paulie during the session, you have to be a member. And he goes over, Blake gave you just a kind of a feel for it last week, or one of the days that Steve was gone, with the spreadsheet and the bias chart. So Paul does that every day. And lots of good numbers that will happen after a session for you to take advantage of. So we'll be hearing from Paulie in a little bit. But, you just look at this team. Andre's one of the best in harmonics. Amanda's a great trader. I mean, I get brags about Amanda on Twitter all the time. When she had some personal things to deal with, she was greatly missed in the room. Does a great job. Joe Perry is, a very humble guy because he has a lot of knowledge in the markets from his experience. In fact, Blake mentored him and taught Joe a little bit about trading, but Joe knows a lot about markets, and yet he defers to a lot of the team for their input before appearances on major media. So, that's someone without an ego, and those are the people you want to deal with, because it doesn't have to be, the spotlight shining on him, but open to, what a great team we have. And that's what he spends his time telling the world about it. And Steve, you see his great morning answering every question you guys have in a free webinar setting. I would say that just a consult with Steve, being able to say, Steve, what are you thinking here in Palladium? Okay, that, any other profession, there'd be a charge for him to share his expertise. You go to the doctor and say, doctor, my arm hurts. What do you think? And not expect to pay him or any other professional. Anyway, that's the way the industry turned out, but great expertise from Steve. And as a subscriber, you get his calls, and in the chat room, Steve, whenever he sees something significant, and a lot of it happens outside of face hours. I mean, we're only here for an hour and a half. A lot of the turning points happen before I even get up in London. But the team is going to notify you with push alerts and everything. So I want to go to, see, even your sign-in page is so nice. Oh, thank you very much, Amanda. Yes, and we are online. So you just have so much information here to look for confluence between different analysts on different instruments. So I just can't think of one reason why you wouldn't want to be here. Maybe we go through some drawdowns, and not every trade is right on active patterns in play, but the hit rate is pretty good. Right here's your hit rate. 52%. Every trade's a 3-to-1 profit risk ratio, while every pip. Where's Greg wrong? 1080. Okay. All right. So again, I guess the big question is, do the S&Ps, which have been the linchpin, have another rally left in them? And we'll know by which part of the range we take out. So really, you look at your daily candle from yesterday, and it looks to me like any direction that comes out of yesterday's range is going to have some follow through, especially the one back to the downside where the moving average comes in as well. The one above, as you can tell, even if we ran to 3,000, we would have the 1 trillionth divergence up there. So be alert for that. And then we'll see if crude, I actually know some people are looking for new highs in crude. My narrative that I'm working on is a new high in the S&P up towards 3,000, and potentially a lower high in crude, maybe up around 64. This was a $6.50 break, so 61.8 right around 64, and the copper. And the S&Ps make new highs, and both of these commodities do not confirm the action in the S&Ps. That's another divergence. Hello, Satoshi. So you're on, Sonic, you're on in 50 minutes. Welcome to Face. I'm going to bring on the team now. Blake, is your internet still up?
Yeah, I'm good to go for right now. And,
all right, buddy.
We were out this morning when I got up. The whole neighborhood is out. Yeah, it's a little.
You feel like you're in the Stone Age again.
I do. It's a little.
I know. Weird. I get anxiety without my internet.
Yeah, it's like I'm sitting there on my phone. I have to put my glasses on, so I can kind of.
So how do I make a living without internet? That's what I'm saying. I want to sue the cable company for being incompetent and letting my internet go down.
Yeah,
I get mad at them.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, the good news is I'm going to be here for a little bit, and I wanted to cover just a couple of things, and then Steve, excuse me, Paul is going to join in. Paulie's going to come in, and we're going to talk to him a little bit and see what he's seen over in Asian trade. And the cool thing about Paulie is he does the European crossover, so he has a really good sense of what has been happening all night, which is great, and he's a wonderful asset to have for us and for our traders, that are immersed in our community. So I think it's important that you hear from him, because that he is there, and I think a lot of traders that are involved in our community listen to his European crossover when they get up. They get in front of the computer, and a lot of them do listen live. And if you are around, during the hours that he is broadcasting, which I happen to be asleep at that time, but it's it's part of our effort as ForexAnalytix to try to have coverage 24 hours a day. That's the ultimate goal. In Asia, we lack a little bit because of just not being able to have full coverage then, but usually, right as Asia is wrapping up, Stelios jumps in, and then in the chat rooms and so on and so forth. So make sure that you're tuned in to hear Paul, and you'll get to hear what his analysis is like here momentarily. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to cover a few things that has happened this morning. First and foremost, there's the tensions, the U.S.-China trade tensions are obviously great, and it's keeping a lid on equity markets. We had a snapback rally yesterday after like I mentioned yesterday at this time 24 hours ago, I said they're probably going to buy up equities. And they did. Equities almost filled the gap completely. I mean, if you look at the S&P, we were, this is the Sunday night drop. We almost filled that gap completely. We hit the 78% retracement, and we've come off a little bit. And unless we enter Friday with no China-U.S. trading agreement, this market's poised to go higher, as you said, Dale. Now, excuse me really quick, sorry about that. I don't know what I would be doing with the S&P at this moment, or risk at this moment, but because it's hard to be short knowing that we've only got another 48 hours or so until we find out if there's it's actually 72 hours, right? Today's Tuesday. So we got about another 72 hours before we find out there's a U.S.-China trade deal. I wouldn't be too bearish unless we find out like the delegation just packed up and decided to go home, and then we know that the tariffs are going to come into full effect Thursday night, Friday morning. If that happens, then obviously risk appetite is going to come unglued. You're going to see stocks really start to come down. But unless that happens, it's hard to be bearish equities right now. Matter of fact, I have a pattern in play for the S&P. For short, and that was for a bearish engulfing from days ago. You see this bearish engulfing right here, and I'm tempted to probably close it out until we have, because it is a descending wedge. But what I'd rather see is a break of this 2860. a break below that, then I'd be more inclined to reinitiate like short risk type of trades. But as of right now, it's a little, you know, I think a little risky being short equities at this point in time, just because the like I said, the market is poised for some good news, and I think the market's looking past everything that we're going through at the moment, making the assumption that things are going to work out with China, because Trump wants it to happen. So everybody's making the assumption that it's going to happen. So I think you have to, like I said, you have to be a little careful being short risk. Now, the European Commission just came out and downgraded forecasts of the Eurozone GDP numbers, and the euro has come under a little bit of pressure. But as long as there is a U.S. As long as there's a trade deal, you have to be a little skeptical about being long the dollar. So even though the euro's dropped a little bit, I would be a little careful being short euro dollars, because if risk appetite continues to be strong, that means if stocks continue to go up, the dollar will probably be sold as dollars are reallocated to other places like the eurozone, despite the weak GDP growth forecast. Now you could say, well, I want to short the euro. Maybe you short the euro against something else. You look at the euro pound. Might be a good short. As we approach this, we're below some support here, but if we break through 84.70 pence, you could see a pretty big slump in the euro pound. The euro Aussie might be another great opportunity. You're near trend highs. If you want to short the euro, this might be a better way, especially if there is a positive China-U.S. trade deal. So I think there's different ways to express being short euros and not be not have dollar exposure. So that's something to think about. The cable continues to come off. Once we stalled at the 618. We're coming off and probably going to see some support down here, probably around this 130.50, and I think Paulie's going to talk a little bit more about that. That would be the 618 of this move, so we might see 130.50. So a little bit lower in the cable before we get some sort of bounce. Remember, there is ongoing Brexit negotiations right now, so obviously that's influencing the cable just a bit. And last but not least, before I turn it over to Paul Franco, the dollar yen. The dollar yen, we've come off and we sold off to the 78% retracement right here. You can see it right there. Okay, we sold off to 78% retracement. We bounced back. We're struggling at the previous support, which is acting as current resistance. If we get a move back above 111, this would be extremely bullish for the dollar yen. Again, if there's a positive development in the U.S.-China trade deal, then the dollar yen should, make its way back towards 112, and it would take every other yen pair with it, euro yen, Aussie yen. And speaking of Aussie yen, I mean, the Aussie yen, it stalled right at the downtrend line here at 78 yen, following the RBA decision last night. But we get a move above 78 yen again, and we're going a lot higher. So just a few things to keep an eye on ahead of the North American session. But what I really want to do is I want to turn it over to Paul Franco. Let me see if I can find him. I think he's in the attendee list, so let me grab him. He's on a different link here. Where is Paul? See if I can find him.
Blake?
Yeah, I'm here, Blake.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm here.
He's under the name of Dale.
I think you just have to switch me to presenter.
Oh, you're right here.
I signed in as a presenter.
Oh, you did. And let me see. Did you get the charts?
Hang on. Yeah, I was seeing everything. Hold on one moment.
I told everyone,
okay,
guys, I'm on Gemini. So
yeah, we can see
here's my good twin.
We can see your desktop, Paul.
Now, do you see my charts?
Yes, we do. Yes, we
Okay,
do. Okay.
fantastic.
All right. All right. Good. So, hey, now before you start, Paul, just want to let everybody know, you know, you broadcast while I'm in the middle of sleeping, you know, typically. So it's a broadcast that's available only to the ForexAnalytix subscribers. Then obviously if you are a ForexAnalytix subscriber and you can't listen in when Paul is live, the broadcast goes out to, you know, the recording goes out to our traders first, and then a few hours later it's opened up to everybody else. But, you know, obviously based on how active you are in the markets, it makes sense to watch that video as soon as possible as a ForexAnalytix subscriber, because you talk very intraday specific levels, building the bias chart. So if you guys don't normally listen to Paul Franco, take the next 10-15 minutes and really take in what he has to say, because Paulie's been making his living in the markets for years. And when I found him originally and brought him into the Wise Trade group when way back, was it 5-6 years ago, Paul's just he's a scrappy trader. He gets in there, makes his living in the markets. So he's a really good person to
Where'd you find him, Blake? On Twitter?
On Twitter, he was listening into some of my broadcasts, and
okay.
he joined our chat room for a little bit, didn't you, Paulie? So
yeah, I did, and yeah, you're right. I became I would post a lot of charts and would talk to Blake. It was, I've been on Twitter for a long time, but Blake was one of the very first people I followed, and he was really super friendly. And back then, now Twitter's so big, but back then he was a super nice guy, shared a lot of information. So I would share charts or post charts, and that's how I became, develop like an interaction with
a friendship.
Cool. What a great story. So Blake, all
Blake,
good things.
Back then you were a nice guy. Back then.
Back then.
Now you've gotten a little crabbier, Blake.
I have. I've gotten a little crabbier.
But you know what? That story that Paul told proves a point that all good things come to you. You didn't go out looking for Paul. And Paul was seeking. So a real good thing in your life, having a lot of things that are great for you just came and appeared in your life instead of chasing it.
Yeah, Paul Franco has been a blessing to our community.
There you go.
Before ForexAnalytix. So, Paul, I'm going to let you take over with some charts. Thanks for being here today. I'm sure everybody wants to hear what you have to say. So, thanks for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks a lot, Blake.
Good luck, Blake, today.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, have a great day.
Okay, guys, and the reason I'm just stepping in, as Dale pointed out, Blake was having some internet problems, so I'm stepping in just as a fill-in. That's simply it. Wasn't a planned thing at all whatsoever. But Blake made a point that we do have the European crossover webinar that is at 3 a.m. Central Standard Time, 4 a.m. Eastern Time. But Stelios records it, and then it's posted actually about an hour and a half before even the New York session opens. So if you're not up at that time, you can certainly catch the webinar. And what we focus on, everybody has their own style of the way they're trading. Stelios.
What are those hours for you, Paulie, in Texas?
Well, it's I get up just a little bit after 2 a.m. And then I get ready for the webinar, which starts at 3 a.m. my time. And then the webinar lasts for about an hour. We cover all the intraday levels for not only the majors, but also the cross rates. We start out the show with just reviewing a couple of things, some news called the morning bid, and then one FX story, and then we any reports that have come out or coming up, and then we delve right into the analysis. And my focus is primarily on scalping, but what a lot of the traders in the room will go and use it is they'll have their own styles, but they'll use some of the scalping levels or intraday levels to fine tune what they want to do and to come in. Like an example right here, we have the cable. We've got our bias chart. We just posted this here. We've got our bias chart support coming in at 30.52. So the cable's been dipping and dipping, dipping. There's a little bit of a support level coming in at 57, but really you'd be looking to step in around 52 to cover your shorts if you've been playing it that way. The dollar yen, you can see here, I posted that. We had our buy chart support coming at 1055. Looks like that nicked that right to the pip. Right to the pip. We actually, Blake was mentioning about the Asian session. Actually, I do cover part of the Asian session. I'll be in during the chat room for the Asian session. Actually, when all this craziness was happening at the time, me and another gentleman at the time got long the dollar yen here at 10. I think it was 1037 or 1035, and it actually got, as Blake says, right to that 78%. And we had a good chance to go in and ride it up. I think he may have ridden it up further than me. I'm primarily just a scalper, but this was my first target on that thing, which was a 1056 on the way up. So now which was resistance acting on that scalp long, is now support. But we certainly did make a pretty good run here in the dollar yen. So taking a look where we stand right now, we're taking a look at the euro. We did see the euro make a pause on, and I didn't see at the time the weaker German data, but then also we had looks like they wrote down what the expectations are for German GDP, and that gave it an extra little whack, and we're pushing a little bit lower now. On the daily, it certainly looks like the door's open to eventually move higher. I think that, as I said, a funny thing happened on the way to Palladium. I think the dollar was poised to move lower. I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but one of the key focuses that we were focusing in the chat room, actually for the last couple of weeks or 3 weeks, we've been focusing on this level, this 97.89, which is actually, it was a huge level. It's even a monthly level, but it was the 61% of the entire move of 88.29 to 103.83, and we were able to get above it, but then we slid below it. And then the dollar had an impressive rally to come back. But then what we were talking and focusing a lot on the chat room on Friday after the great, I mean, not great, but very, very good NFP, was that, hey, if we lose this 97.89, it's really going to put the pressure on the dollar. And certainly we saw the dollar continue to slip through that day and really open the door for the dollar to eventually move lower. Not thinking it's going to fall out of bed, but get a nice little correction. But with all the Trump, the tweet that changed the markets kind of flipped things around, and some other things have happened, and the dollar, at least for now, is on the bid. Now, one of the things that we looked at, as I said, we had the bias chart. Here's the dollar index. Our bias chart support for today for the cash dollar index, and we do this, we put this together hours before. So our expected high tick on this was 97.68, and that's exactly where the market ran out of gas. Actually, might have ticked up, might have missed it by one tick. So that's what we look at when we're setting it up. And if you're, let's say you're playing it for the long side, you're playing to the short side or whatever, you can incorporate these bias chart levels that we work on every day or every morning in the European session to incorporate. So I think at the time the dollar was only trading like at 50 or something like that. So this was our bias chart resistance for today. So what we expected the market to, if it gets there, to pause and essentially run out of gas. We dipped a little bit further, but we can, if we do get past that, sometimes that'll work like a pivot work and go beyond. So in the dollar index, like I said, as Blake was saying, if things eventually turn around, we'll probably see the dollar slide back. I think it would take a lot for the dollar to get back. If you're thinking, well, what if it gets above 68? Well, the key marker on this, and although we look at scalp levels, we do look at the daily charts to give us an idea where things are at. So the key would be is if the market were to reclaim 97.89 on a daily close, or more importantly on the close on Friday, that would put us right back in. The bears would be in trouble and we'd be, going up and away. But this is the line in the sand now. After we lost it, I think it would be pretty hard to reclaim this level back. So as I said, we focus on the intraday charts. Now here, if you look in here, as I mentioned, the cable, we have a little bit of support here at 57, and sounds kind of, like I said, dipping into minutia, but we have our bias chart coming here at 30.52. So some people I know, like Mand, has been playing it from the short side. I caught a little bit of the short this morning. I actually already jumped out of my cable short. I don't like to hang on. I'm just primarily a scalper. But here at the dollar CAD, we were looking for 34.74. I was posting these in the chat room also. In our chat room, we're pretty active here. There's Amanda. All the guys are here. Everybody's always posting charts throughout the time, all real time. As far as everybody posts and shares what they have. Everybody's real supportive of everybody. So we're all. You can see right here, the dollar CAD was right there, 34.70. 34.74. That was our bias chart support. Well, from this morning, I don't remember. I think we're down in the 40s, and so my bias chart resistance today was 34.74. And right here, let's see. Here's a 34.74, and if you look at that, that's the high tick, the high pip right there, 34.74. Actually, a couple of guys got short on the run up in here. So what we try and do is, and sometimes, like I said, it's like sometimes they say sometimes better to be lucky than good, but we try and lay these levels out, and you'll see sometimes I put in with a pink to highlight it within the work that we're already doing. Primarily, I look at the 2-hour charts. And then I use a exponential moving averages to kind of give me an idea where things are moving along. So I'm just trying to explain what I guess you call it modus operandi or what I use to go on and look into these pairs. Now, one of the things I also do is we focus also on the cross rates. And I was talking to a gentleman yesterday in the chat room. And he was, or actually it might have been the previous in the Asian session. And I hope y'all are seeing my cross rate charts. If you're not, let me know. But he was saying, I only focus on the majors. And I go, I was the same way. And actually, I moved to the cross rates because it had been so dead and quiet in the majors. And boy, I tell you what, you really get some good volatility in these majors. I mean, some doggone good volatility. And so I told him, I said, it takes a little while to catch on a little bit if you're just used to trading the majors, but there really is some great opportunity. Amanda trades the cross rates quite a bit, but we have a lot of people that do go on and trade these. And I think Blake was mentioning here, was mentioning also the Euro Aussie, but it's also here in the Aussie Yen. Same thing here. We, if you look in here on the bias chart, we had the RBA yesterday, and let me go and straighten this up here, and we had our bias chart resistance this morning in the go right here, move this here. And right now, like I said, I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a flavor of what we do. So apologize if it seems like I'm jumping all over the map. But we had our bias chart resistance here at, let's see, with the Aussie Yen. Right here at 77.90. And you can see we popped up now. Amanda probably had her own levels here too, but she got short here. Now, we had actually dropped and a pretty decent amount for there. I think within about a couple hours or something, we dropped about 40 pips after we made this run up here. And you do see some pretty good volatility in here. If you can, like I said, if you're not used to trading the majors, I certainly would go on and we actually on this big dip found the support at the 38%. I certainly would go on and look at it because it's a great opportunity. You keep hearing, oh man, it's so dead in FX, it's so dead in FX. Well, it's dead in FX in the majors, but it sure as heck isn't dead in FX when you're looking at the cross rates.
Nothing is dead if you're looking at short-term time frames. I mean, the short-term time frames, you always find something that's moving, right? That's
no,
one of
you're
the
right. Yeah, you are right. I mean,
of being a scalper.
You
don't need like a huge movement to make a living.
Yeah, I tell you what, Amanda tears it up too. You keep hearing Dale say the same. Dale say it, but I'm telling you, she does really well trading these cross rates. And that was one of the reasons I got kind of prompted because I was saying, boy, these majors just simply aren't moving that much. And I traded cross rates a couple times, but not very much. And now a lot of my trading, not a lot, all of it, but it does include, trading the cross rates. So we do the analysis here. Once again, like I said, if you look here, initially we do go in and cover the gold. I do follow it as the XAU index, but as I mentioned, we cover quite a bit of the cross rates here, so you get a pretty good flavor whether you're looking at the yen pairs or sterling pairs or against the euro. Same thing with the euro pound. But as I said, I wanted to go and give you a general idea of what we do. Now, I am available in the Asian session, not all the time, but we, here at Forex Analytics, we do try and cover a pretty good time frame of, in the chat room. There's always somebody there. I'm talking about a lot of the members. I get a few people that actually would normally trade in Europe. Quite often will come into the Asian session when we've got Aussie data, and boy, I tell you what, you see some pretty good moves in these pairs. We've scalped a few times in the Asian session. You're thinking, well, the Asian session wouldn't be if you trade. Well, the Aussie, yes, but if you traded, thinking, well, we get a little bit of movement. Boy, I tell you what, when you look at these cross rates, they really do move. So as I mentioned, we go on and set in each day the resistance and support scalp levels, but we try and incorporate that. And you can see what a big move here with the sterling and the Aussie. And obviously when the sterling took off, it looked like it was going to the moon. And then we gapped up on Sunday, and look how much we gave up. We came up in, and I was pointing out.
It's a textbook exhaustion gap, right, Polly?
Yeah, I mean, well, this is actually, and I had a chance to get short, and I didn't. I just honestly, I just chickened out. I looked out here on the daily when this came out, and there was a real good resistance level at 189, and I was thinking, yeah, but the RBA is coming, and with this whole the tweet that changed everything, I thought, what if they decide to go on and if they decide to go in and cut after all. But we danced around back and forth here that on the Sunday session here after we'd already gapped. So we had a lot of people that were under pressure at that time. But I tell you what, look how much it gave back. I mean, when I'm talking about moves in the cross rates, look how much this thing gave back. About 240 pips. And today's only Tuesday. I'm just saying, you see some good movements, and I'll tell you what, they really respond really well to the technicals. As I mentioned, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but you get a lot of support in the chat room, and a lot of people are real good with sharing their entries, what they're looking for as targets, sharing the charts. And I'll tell you what, if you're not used to trading the crosses, I'll tell you what, give ForexAnalytix a chance and take a look at this, because like I said, although it's been relatively quiet at times, especially when you look at the euro, quite as far as volatility, you certainly see these moves. Stelios was pointing out, and Steve, that you see these moves here in the cross rates. So as I mentioned, we come in each day, we spend about an hour putting together this bias chart, which includes not only the majors, we look obviously the peso too, but the cash dollar index, and then we move straight on into the cross rates. So I don't know if you have any comments you want to make.
We have a request here. If you could add to the list of the instruments you're tracking every day, crude oil.
Yeah, I used to go in and track the crude oil. I'll actually just go in and switch into that. Also, someone was mentioning about the S&Ps, and we do keep track of that. It's just that trying to service the clients we had then, I said, I think I'm going to start focusing, a lot on these cross rates, and maybe I will go in and add the crude oil. Let's go in and move into that chart here. And one of the things, there was some questions someone had asked about the S&Ps. And yesterday we had someone asked about this, and thinking, what's the level that you see? Or they were just asking generally in the chat room, really for anyone that saw it. And we'll go in and move into that chart.
Hey, Paulie, you're a Top Gun, and I would not want to walk into the OK Corral without you at my side, or the FX markets for that matter.
Well, I focus, like I said, my style, I wish I was one of those people that made, says, hey, I just closed up for 200 pips. I just closed up for 180. And I tell you, Amanda's one of those, although she can scalp too, or day trade. She doesn't scalp as much, but she closed out today. She closed out that Aussie yen. I think she caught it for about 40 some pips or something. That was only over the course of about a couple hours or something. So you do get those big movements, but primarily I scalp. There's just, everybody has their own, mentality, what you're good at. I'm just not the kind of person that can hold on for long periods of time. But someone's asking me about the S&Ps, or asking in the chat room, and we had this level here, 29.19. You kind of pause back in here. We took off, and you can see right where they ran out of gas. One of the things I do in my analysis, you'll see people put their trends, and that's fine. Their levels at the high and the low here. I don't. I do it across the bodies, and you'll see the market always returns back to the scene of the crime. The reason I do it at the bodies, because That's where the most volume is at. And my thinking is, how many people bought the bottom and how many people sold the top? But it's right here in the bodies where you're the closes and openings where you see the most volume. It's also where people have to put up or shut up, thinking of it, whether this is a daily close or it's a 4 hour or a 2 hour, or even an hourly. At that point, you'll see quite often if a market's a little bit under trouble and you're going towards the close of an hour, you'll see that trouble keep on going up to the close of the hour, because once again, that's where the pressure is being put on. So you can see right here where the market ran out of gas. My take is, I'm thinking, because we had rallied here just past the 78%, my thought from a little bit overall perspective is, I think that on any rallies back, this gave people opportunity to exit out of those longs. That's why I think we fell back quite a bit. And to me, if it's me, I think, you know what, if they do the deal, great. But to me, it's almost like a roll of a dice, because what if they do and what if they don't? So to me, I would have thought that on this run back up, you probably would have seen a lot of people, laying off exposure. And then we came back, and now we kind of popped back up in the middle, and now here we are dripping back. I'm not here to say whether the market is going to fall apart or move or higher, but to me, it just seems like that's an awful lot of risk if you've been playing this to be hanging on up here. So that's my 2 cents as far as that goes. As far as the crude oil, Steve's done exceptionally well in that. And Dale, I think you're a little bit hard on yourself. I think you caught some good moves on this, and you were talking about it, and you did well. I think you just said you got out a little bit early, and you jumped in took the other side, and now that's one of the things I try not to do anymore. I used to try and flip as quickly as I can, but once a trend turns, I just let the exponential moving averages tell me to, not do anything too fancy, Dan, and just go with that trend once it sets itself. But we did come back in here. It looks like here to this 23%.
Buddy.
Huh?
Good mentoring.
Yeah, well, you know what? I tell you what, I've always had those exponential moving averages, and lots of times I've ignored them to my own detriment. And I tell you what, those exponential moving averages, they kind of keep me honest. It keeps me from jumping in too quick to the other side. Cool. But that being said, we did find some support here at this 23%. So I'll let Steve make that determination. He's been the king of the hill at calling these moves here on the crude oil. So, but yeah, I can always include that in the bias chart. But our take today was just to go on and give what the levels are. Same thing here with the XAU. We were looking for 1287 yesterday, early in European trading, with market ran out of gas at 1286. I'm talking about on the XAU, and our support was, I think it was 1278. We took that up by about $1. So once again, like I said, on the R bias chart, we're just focused primarily, and I'll spin this back to the main screen. I just set up this on the bias chart for the scalp levels. And then it gives people the opportunity to go in and incorporate those with their own trading. And that's primarily what the work that we are going to do here. As I mentioned, it's live. The European crossover webinar lasts for an hour. Sometimes it'll be 5 minutes less. Sometimes it'll be 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes over, depending on how busy we are. And the good thing is that if you're not up, it's recorded and still is posted about an hour and a half before the New York Open is ready to go, and so you have the opportunity to go in and cover those levels or catch the early morning news, whatever it was. And like I said, then when you get a lot of support during in the chat room, I'll tell you what, there's a bevy of traders here in those European hours. So if you're interested in the trade or in the cross rates, you couldn't pick a better time. So I think it'd be a good opportunity to go on and take a trial with ForexAnalytix, and not only get a look at all the opportunities or the not opportunities, but the things that we do have. One of the new things that they have is called the data flash, and something that they were testing, and Blake was testing. He said it's just as fast or almost as fast as his Bloomberg terminal.
Yeah, so that's our new baby. We released it last week, and it works, very nicely.
Yes, holy smokes, man. I was starting. I remember I was saying I'd pay for anything just to get the news almost as fast. And shoot, this is already included into the data flash is included into the ForexAnalytix. So you see that news. Lots of times you'll hear Blake talking and say, by the time you have a chance to respond and you're seeing it on Twitter, the market's already moved back and forth and blah, blah, blah. Well, wow, you got the opportunity now with that data flash with ForexAnalytix. So I just want to go on and touch on what to give you a little bit of the flavor of what we do in the European crossover webinar and the participation and excellent support that we have in the webinar, in the chat room, I meant to say, during those European hours. So if you haven't taken a trial, take a look at it, and I'll let Steve go on and jump in if he wants to have his own input here or take over the screen.
I'm here. Thank you very much, Polly.
Okay,
and as Polly said, if you're a ForexAnalytix subscriber, you can be live on his show or catch it up immediately after. If you're not a ForexAnalytix subscriber, we do post his webinar, but several hours later. And given the short-term nature of his outlook, because Paul is mostly a scalper, obviously that's not the same. Thank you very, very much, Paulie.
Okay.
Thank you, Paulie.
Oh yeah, great. Thank you, a lot, Dale.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, how are you, Dave?
Okay, what do you left? I didn't make a joke yet.
Yeah, but I know you will.
No, I'm out of material, man.
Okay.
See, that's a joke.
Thankfully, I'm never out of material. Speaking of which, Paulie reminded me to speak about the Aussie yen. Blake has been all over it as well, on top of it, actually. I just wanted to say that besides everything else, he showed the technical level. He was looking for a scalp, but I also have this, it's of interest to me because if you're expecting more continuation lower for risk, which is a very high probability scenario for at least, a few days, the Aussie yen retested this trend line, previously support, in this case resistance, closed the gap from Sunday and has been selling off since. So I have to say that from a risk reward perspective, Aussie yen, after closing the gap here and retesting at the same time this trend line resistance, and so far showing an initial rejection from there, it's a great risk reward opportunity, in my opinion. So if you like it to the short side, I think that you have a nice setup here, as a short-term setup. At the same time, since Kiwi is still underperforming, I have to remind you that Kiwi had already done, as with Kiwi against the USD, same with Kiwi against the yen, it had already broken below a formation, a bearish formation. In this case, it was an ascending wedge. I decided to ignore that wick because that was literally almost like a flash crash move down. So in this case, I usually ignore the wicks if it's a very, very sudden, extremely short-lived move. So you can see that it had broken below it and continuing lower. Next support, by the way, for the Kiwi yen, which, as you see, it's quite a significant support area. It's the confluence of this horizontal support area. As you see, it has acted as support once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times in the past. It's also the 61.8% fib. So watch this 72.23 area as an area of support. By the way, we have a friend watching here. I'm guessing from the question that he's an amateur, because he's asking how do I set my stop loss and how do I take profit? How do I know how to use MetaTrader 4 or 5? This is not the place to answer these questions, but I have to tell you that we're going to have a series of webinars for people that are newer to trading soon enough. So I think that's going to be the place for us to answer all those questions for you. How do you get a copy of this video? That's very easy for me to answer. If you go to if you go to YouTube, there is, and you type ForexAnalytix, you'll find our channel. Now, of course, I'm logged in as an administrator, but it doesn't really matter because you'll see more or less the same thing. All of our videos are in playlists in different categories here. So these are the face webinars, and you can find them, under the face webinars. We have everything here. We've done how many is it, Coach, now? 600 plus webinars. So all of them are posted on a daily basis there. Now, going back to crude, because we had a question about crude, the crude technical picture remains exactly the same. I'm monitoring this descending channel in which, crude is depreciating. So far so good. The next step is to see a breakdown from this confluence. As you see, the 50 and the 200 daily moving averages are both confluencing currently at $60.75. If I see a move below that, I think that will open the door for the next area, which is 60, and below that it's 58. So I would, I would believe that, at least a correction towards 58 is quite a likely scenario. I'm still holding short to my position, and my cost average is at 64.75. So I'm comfortably in the money. Yeah,
could I ask you, if you got through that red channel and tagged the blue uptrend that was recently broken, where would that come in the next few days? Around 64-ish?
Yeah, there is a chance, even if you see it from a nail wave perspective, since you mentioned it, there is a chance that we're going to see a big rebound higher. So, for example, I wouldn't be surprised. You can count this as 5 waves down, I guess. So I wouldn't be surprised if something like this. Now we're on the 4-hour chart.
Okay.
We can jump even higher.
And that would test that channel, I think, that you were showing before.
Yeah, very likely. Very likely. So anywhere between, let's say, 64 and 64.50. Yeah, we can even move all the way to that area.
That's what I'm looking. That's
it is a likely scenario.
It's a wet dream sale for me.
Oh, absolutely. Especially from a risk reward perspective, it's going to be an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
If I see that we're failing to resume lower here, I might actually take profits on 50% of my position, and then if we tag these levels again, I would definitely add back to a full position up there.
Okay. I appreciate you letting me interrupt your.
Well, absolutely.
I think it's an important, just to prep our crowd just in case that happens. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, gold and silver, both, if you are bullish, you can interpret that both of them are within, a triangle, a wedge, a pennant, depends on how you want to see it. For gold, for example, somebody can see this as a pennant, obviously. For silver, it's too big to be one, but whatever. So, I'm monitoring these technical formations, and as you see, they have very clear, especially for silver, the width of this formation is now very tight. I mean, it extends from, let's say, roughly 1455 to 1495. So we're talking about a 40-cent range. So, it inevitably, it has to break one way or the other. I think that, whenever that happens, we should see some continuation. Speaking of which, Coach, I know that you like it. We had a big reversal. I forgot to show it yesterday, but we had a big reversal on Friday. We had an evening star formation completed on the daily chart for the gold-silver ratio. I know that you like it, so mentioning that. Now, having to do with the other two metals, platinum and palladium. Platinum is retesting this 875 support resistance area this time as resistance. So let's see if it's going to work. And palladium still remaining very weak, but refusing to, in essence, break down to go to my next target, which is 1265. Regardless, I have already taken profits on the vast majority of my position here. I'm still holding part of it, and I have no reason not to be patient. I think that there is a good chance that we're going to tag 1265. Now, having to do with copper, if you remember, I mentioned that this 284, 285 area should act as resistance if we retested, and in essence, that's what we did. We went up, we retested this 284, 285 area because, in essence, I never like levels. As you understand, they're always like little areas, so you can see it like this. Okay, it's much more clearly visible like this. So this is what we drew when we actually dipped lower. I said that, listen, we might retest this as resistance, but if we fail from there, then we should be looking lower. And in essence, we've now failed from this 284 to 85 zone, which means that as long as this is holding as resistance, you have no reason not to be looking lower for copper. So this also concludes, a fast overview of the metals. Hello guys, I'm long USD CAD from 130.27. Okay, that's a nice entry area. And 132.12. My target is 137.80. Okay, let's have a look at it and check your business plan, let's call it. Let's check your trading plan and see. First of all, I think that the 137.80 target, I can tell you in advance, I think it's very optimistic. I'm not saying that, USD CAD cannot make it to that area, but I'm saying that, in my opinion, for various reasons, and I'm going to show them to you from a technical perspective, of course, it's kind of an over-optimistic target. I would have a much more conservative target in this case, and I can explain clearly why, and you can see it here. It's this ascending channel. As you see, this ascending channel is currently passing from not even 136. Okay, so I think that 137.80, if you have a look at it on the daily, yes, it is a doable target, and I'm going to show you why on the daily. Simply because if it takes some time, we might move all the way up to the bigger channel, right? Which is even above 137.80 at the moment. It currently passes from 138, and for every day that passes it, it moves even higher. But before we start targeting the broader channel, I think it's a good idea to first target the inner channel, which, as you see, as I said, passes currently from just below 136. So at the very, very least, first of all, you have a nice entry area. Your cost average, from what I understand, let me see your entry levels again. So your cost average is, let's say, roughly at 131 and change. So your cost average is roughly, let's say, here at these lows, roughly. So you already had a nice move higher. I would definitely look to take some profits if we make it to 135.80, 136. Now, if we do break above that zone, then yes, you have every reason. You can take like some partial profits there, and then you have every reason to hope that the next move higher is going to take the pair, for a retest of the larger channels. As you see, this is a very significant channel. This is a channel that dates back to July 2017. So, soon enough, like within a couple of months, this is going to be a 2-year old channel. So a very, very significant technical formation. So yeah, you can definitely look up to that, but first we have to clear that area. Other than that, I have no problem with your plan. It sounds like a solid one. Our pleasure, mate. Thanks for the promptness. I love what you're doing, guys. Our pleasure. Okay, this way we also had a look at the USD CAD. Since we were talking about it, let's also have a look at the USD NOK. Let me say here that my position in the USD NOK. I have every reason to remain bullish USD NOK as long as it remains above this broken long-term corrective formation. But you have to take into account that this 880 to 882 area has already rejected price twice, and you can even say 3 times, since 2 trading days ago on Friday we got rejected from the bottom of it. You can even draw it like this. So we've already been rejected 3 times from this zone. So you like USD NOK to the short side for some reason, this is your opportunity. You can be short here against, let's say, 883. Okay, but if we do clear this 882 area to the upside, I think that the next target is, as you see, there's this purple ascending channel. So I think that the next move should take us for a retest of this ascending channel, which, as you see, currently passing is currently passing from 904. But until we make it up there, it's probably going to be somewhere at the vicinity of 910. So, a very decent upside. So you have 2 options here to summarize. You either trade against 882 or you wait for a breakout, in which case we should see a nice extension higher. You might want to buy the breakout for an extension towards 905, 910. Okay. Question about the USD-MXN. I'll gladly cover it, although I have nothing much to say about the USD-MXN because what remained a fact, even like 2 weeks ago, still remains a fact. So 3 things are given here. One, that this 1870, 1872 is a strong area of support. 2, it becomes even stronger as the days pass. Why? Because this longer term symmetrical triangles support is actually, as you see, converging to this horizontal support area. So, now that in a few days from now, at this like 1870, 1875, if we want to broaden it a little bit area, we're going to have both this horizontal support area and the triangle support, which is a very, very powerful confluence of supports. So being close to this area, I think that risk reward definitely favors being long for another move higher, because as you see, the triangle's resistance is still some hefty distance from where we currently are. On the other hand, if something happens and we break below this area, there's going to be a major bearish signal, breaking out of a multi-year, because this is a 2.5-year symmetrical triangle, is something that you should seriously take into consideration, and you should not try to fade that move. So, you pick your poison: dollar strength, dollar weakness against the MXN, but definitely what is the major critical level for the market, and that's that area at around 1870 to 1875. Okay, my pleasure. What is your short-term outlook for the DAX? I closed my DAX longs. I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday. I'll have to go to my trading account to answer that question. But I closed my DAX longs literally the day before it topped. Why? Because we had the confluence of this ascending channel with this horizontal support resistance area that you see here. So, I thought that, that was a good run. I had bought it after breaking out from this bull flag. So that was a good move higher. Now, what is my medium-term outlook? It's a little bit complex, and I'll explain why. Because we had a move lower, which might have been it. There is no question about it. It might have been it. We've had a very, very nice recovery from the end of last year to now. I would obviously advise against anybody being long up here. That's why I closed my longs. Now, would I be short yet? Not really, because nobody tells me that we can find support at a retest of this, 12,000 area. So for me to want to be short the DAX again, I would want to see a break below this major confluence of supports. You can see that this 11,800 area hosts many, many support areas. Okay, so in between there and 12,400, I'll keep a neutral stance. Below 11,800, I would be looking for opportunities to be short the DAX again. Okay, now if I see a bullish reaction from either this area 12,000, 12,100, or from this area 11,800, then I might consider buying the index again, actually, especially if I'm still holding a short position on the S&P, because then it also acts as a hedge to that. Okay, so that's my outlook on that. Oh, by the way, Coach, I just realized that I've already taken 3 minutes from your interview. So if you're ready, go ahead.
Hey, buddy, I know it's hard for you to get all your stuff in 15 minutes. So great. Another great review of the board by Steve Volge. Thank you, Steve. Sonic, I'm making you the presenter. Really looking forward to meeting you and having a conversation about our favorite hobby, trading, or our favorite vocation, trading. Sonic, waiting to hear you. Mr. Crypto.
Hello.
Hi, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Dale, how's it going?
Good. So nice to meet you. And we've had some life in crypto over the last couple months. Very nice recoveries. But I want to start off with this. Okay, your handle. I know the Satoshi part. Sonic. Does that mean that you trade above the speed of sound, and that makes you Sonic? Huh?
Pretty much. Yeah, that's how I got the nickname.
Okay. So Sonic, why don't you take us back to before you became a trader? What were you doing, and what led you into it? I'm assuming you're probably an early adopter of Bitcoin. Am I guessing correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So why don't you tell us the story, how it happened for you?
Sure. So I started getting into markets like generally from a friend of mine in college. He was kind of like looking at stock market and things like that, and I would kind of follow along and buy things like randomly and have no real clue about what I was doing. But before I actually started trading, I was a stuntman in the movie industry, so that was what I was doing.
Wow.
I did a lot of films all over the states and a lot of different things like that. So I was a stunt double.
What was your most dangerous stunt where you wish you would have had a stop loss and a little tighter? Buddy?
I think it was probably flipping a car.
Okay.
So I had to like ride a car up a rail, and then it made the car jump and flip like a barrel roll. That was pretty intense.
Wow. Did you do a lot of your stunts in automobiles, or were there all different kinds?
Actually, that was probably why it was scary for me, because most of my background, I have like 14 years of parkour and free running background. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but like I was a kid and I would be, climbing up gutters in the alleyway, like jumping from building. And, like,
there are movies like that where they show people that do that. And
that's how I got into the movie business, was like,
wow.
Got recognized for that skill, and it just sort of like led to all sorts of things. And it was just like, this crazy turn of events where at first I was just this crazy kid, everyone was like, dude, you're going to kill yourself. And then all of a sudden, like these, producers were like, hey, you look like this actor. Can you like join our production and like help us with this scene? And it just kind of evolved. And it was like this crazy, sort of career path, out of nothing.
Yeah. That the best things do that way. And, what I gather from it is definitely to do what you did before it became a profession.
Right.
You're not risk averse because you're risking yourself physically. Money is nothing compared to risking your body for work.
Exactly.
So while you were doing this stunt work, were you progressing as a trader, or did you let go of it for a while?
Actually, yeah. Whenever I was like getting into more and more jobs as a stuntman, I started to think to myself, like, I think that there's a smarter way to like, reinvest like some of the money that I'm making and like kind of get involved in investing. And one of the things I bought my first Bitcoin in like June 2015. And I was aware of like how bad it had crashed and all of that, but I had no idea what I was doing. I just literally bought it at the right time. Like it just happened to be the bottom. And it was like, I was kind of doing a lot of soul searching all through the years of my, my path has been very different than most people. Like, so I always had like an interesting perspective, and it led me to question a lot of things about like life and so once I learned about crypto and like what its message was and like what it was trying to accomplish as far as like making sort of like this decentralized network that could sort of solve a lot of the problems. And whenever I learned about how we're just like printing money, it was like, man, that doesn't make any sense. Like there's got to be some kind of a solution. So I just went all in to Bitcoin and had no idea what I was doing. And once it started to seem like, oh, wow, it's doing really well, it was like November 2016 or so. I just decided like I would put a lot more energy into learning and like trying to be a day trader.
Okay.
So that was basically my start.
Okay. So tell us about how you learned how to chart, and if you had any mentors yourself, or were you completely self-taught? Your charts are very clean. I don't see any indicators on it, and we're looking at a weekly chart. So who taught you the value of technical analysis and to use candlesticks, and tell us about that process.
It's a long story, but it happened in a short time because, you know, I would wake up early and spend like literally all day just like trying to figure stuff out. So in the start, like, you know, around late 2016, I was learning a lot about market cycles and like, you know, like the emotional market cycle. And in crypto, you'll see these cycles a lot, and they'll play out a bunch in like the lower cap altcoins and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I was making a lot of like very speculative like trades on these coins that had like no liquidity, and there was no, you know, the only thing I saw was a huge spike and then a huge depression, and I would buy that real low depression on these coins. And
did it work out for you?
And then it just started to work out. But then you know, obviously the market cycle plays out, and they drop so fast. So I really consumed in the beginning. I was just like going on YouTube and just consuming content. I learned a lot. In my first like probably few months from a guy named Crypto Picasso on YouTube. He does a lot of stuff about market cycles, and he specialized in cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. And then I learned from a guy named Josh. He studied Josh Oglowitz or something. I forget how to say his last name, but he's on YouTube, and he did a lot of trend analysis. So I was basically like coming into crypto with the idea of like, this must be close to the bottom, and like a new trend is going to start. And that was kind of like my mentality, was like, if I just dedicate my time now and energy to getting good as a trader, just like how I had with my sport. So like I had spent all this time just like sort of focusing so specifically on this thing that I became skilled at. And I was like, if I can apply that same type of idea to this thing called trading, then I should be able to like get really precise. And that's what my goal was the whole time. So once the whole 2017 bubble happened, that was whenever I started to like, obviously like just kind of get out of the market with most of what I had made. And then like the rest of what I left in just started depreciating really quickly. So I stopped trading for a little bit, and I just started studying price action. And a lot of what I learned was from Forex people. So on YouTube, I was learning from, well, I watched like a lot of Trader Dante stuff, and I learned a ton from Michael Huddleston.
I saw those lines there. I thought so. So, you know, I've interviewed Michael a few times, and also you're not the first person that said they've learned from him. He spawned a lot of great traders. So, did you spend a lot of time? Were you a member of the Inner Circle Traders, or what?
Yeah, I was on the forums for a little while, and I spent most of my time like just sort of rewatching all of the videos on YouTube, and spending like just time taking notes, writing things down, and kind of playing with the charts. Because once I really started to apply the kind of concepts, that was whenever I started to kind of have like a clicking idea and started to look at the market from both sides. Because in the beginning, I was really just a buyer. There was no reason, you know, to get
short.
involved. Right, exactly.
Okay, so do you journal? Because you write some things down. Do you journal your trades?
Yes. I started not too long ago. It was probably like six or 7 months ago. I started to journal like what I was doing and like why I was getting into the trade. I would put the chart set up, like all of that kind of stuff. And that has helped a lot. I think that.
Okay, I was going to ask you that question. You know why? Because you're writing it down, and it's NLP, and it makes a bigger impression on your brain than if you just look at something visually. So,
I think so.
Yeah, so okay, that's a great testimonial for everyone should be journaling their trades. You know, you can't be lazy and do this, can you, Sonic?
No, you can't, not at all. I think that that's really just the thing. It's like every person I've ever met who's successful in anything was like passionate, first of all, and like they had this kind of like drive. Like they were never like, okay, you know, time to take a break. It was always like, no, I want more. Like they're constantly hungry for, you know, trying to make themselves better. Trading, I love the appeal. Like I really clicked with trading because of like my background, and like this whole idea of self-improvement and like getting good was kind of like in my mindset to begin with. And then once I found trading, it was like, wow, it's like, you know, you can kind of do that and play the market, and you could make a living from this. Like this could be a whole income.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of my background. And then once I found, you know, a lot of the crypto Twitter stuff, you know, I started following a lot of guys on there, and just kind of learning. Like I'm always a perpetual student. Like that's kind of just how I see things. And there's never really kind of a you know, like a pinnacle. There's always a perpetual learning curve. So
Okay, so how many years would you say it took you to make breakthroughs to say where you are now, to believe that you can make a living doing this? How many years? Because, you know, you could be the hungriest person for knowledge in the world, but experience still is about time passing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Well, I guess it would probably, I would say I probably hit like my breakthrough moment like late 2018, where I started being like, okay, like I'm really consistent now. And so I guess probably like 2.5 years almost of doing this. I mean, I really haven't been doing this for very long, first of all. So, you know, I guess probably about a year, maybe a little less than a year ago, I started to be way more consistent.
Okay. So why don't you tell us what you're seeing here with structure? And, you know, what I liked was back in February, January, we pulled back but did not take out the low from late last year in Bitcoin, and it was like a 78.6 fib retracement before we started heading up again. That would be, yeah, it was probably February. You had your first white candle, then we moved sideways and put in its first higher low, all the way down at the bottom in 2019. Okay, so okay, there's a low, and then you see the pullback that we're getting there. That was 78.6 back. It's one of my favorite fib levels, and then we went. Yeah. So yeah, I went with GBTC because you know, I just let me ask you this: where do you trade crypto?
So right now I do mostly everything on Deribit. It's basically got futures that has perpetual swap contracts for Ethereum and Bitcoin, and they also do options, so you can buy calls and puts and everything on Bitcoin and Ethereum. So
wow, I didn't even know are they liquid?
They're getting there. I mean, it's not like, it's definitely new. So, but they're definitely the first crypto exchange to have options for Bitcoin. So,
and like the rest of them, Sonic, they're unregulated, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think they're out of the Netherlands or anything like that.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable keeping large sums of cash in there, or do you kind of keep the account drained?
I keep a like a medium size. I don't really want to put too much on there. But yeah, it's always been really good. They're really good with support.
Okay.
I've never had an issue with a withdrawal or a deposit. There's never been a problem.
And you're in the U.S., right?
I'm not anymore, but I was. And in 2017, in the beginning, I was there, and then I moved to kind of like open the horizons as a trader, because I kind of saw the limitations for staying. But yeah.
Where are you?
I'm in the Caribbean. I'm in the Bahamas.
Okay. All right.
So
nice. Yeah. All right. So okay. So the advantages, like you know, Caymans and Puerto Rico, you know, there are some advantages, and also in crypto, unlike in the U.S., we just have so few brokers to choose from. here in the U.S.
Yeah, especially for like derivatives and stuff like that. I mean, fortunately for me, I didn't really get into derivatives like heavily until, I was already like, I had already moved out. But that was one of the things that I saw as I was kind of like, well, do I want to take trading seriously? And I did, like, from the start. And that was one of my decisions from the start, was to kind of leave and maybe move to the Caribbean, do like a citizenship by investment program or something like that.
Okay. So tell us what you're seeing in Bitcoin, and what, say for example, you're flat now, what would you be doing in Bitcoin?
Well, we're at resistance currently. This is kind of the one level I had marked off coming up to this point. And so it's really sort of one of those things where I want to see confirmation.
What would give that to you?
Well, right now, if we look at like the lower time frames, I think I want to see the weekly close, first of all.
Yeah.
But if we look at the lower time frames, the way this is acting here, it's really just kind of flirting with this this level.
Right.
And so right now, I think that maybe
Are you tempted to short it here?
I am a little bit, but it's also like this momentum is just intense.
It is.
And I've been watching Bitcoin, for a while, and when this thing tries to go, it goes. So it's like you don't really want to step in front of it unless you've got like a really, really managed tight stop and everything else. So
okay. All right. So it's an I don't know right here.
It is kind of for me.
Let me ask you this, okay? Because you're on the on Twitter and you're talking to people, and I remember early in my career, is it hard for you to say to people I don't know?
Not really.
Okay, cool, because that's wisdom. Normally a lot of people feel very uncomfortable saying I don't know, and they pretend to know. And
well, I think that also probably comes with like if you have like kind of a responsibility to like, let's say you're housing a room of people who are all paying you money for your opinion. I think that then you would probably be under pressure all the time to be like, oh, well, this is what's going to happen. And I don't have that. So like, it's for me, I'm just being honest with myself whenever I say I don't know. Because like I was long this whole time from like around like 3,400, like you said, off of that fib level. And I was long taking profits at these highs, and then took profits once we cleared over this black area. And then I was completely out of the position and then went long like a few times in here. So I've just been taking profits and waiting to see, what we're going to do here, because now I'm not sure if we're going to actually just pummel through here and head for maybe these highs.
Okay, that was a great trade. Let me ask you this, because you've been in crypto, you have more experience in crypto than me. Were you surprised by the outperformance of Litecoin and Ethereum over Bitcoin during that advance?
I was surprised by Litecoin. I think that was pretty unexpected. But with Ethereum, it's pretty mirroring to Bitcoin. It's almost like a leveraged Bitcoin.
Okay, interesting.
It's like a cheaper, but the market structure on Ethereum and Bitcoin are so similar. So if we look at Ethereum, now we've been having way more, the higher lows are a little bit more obvious on here, but the structure right down at this point, if you look, that was the like higher low that brought us all the way up to these. It looks so similar to the way that Bitcoin did. So to me, it's like a leveraged Bitcoin.
Yeah, so you had like doubles in both, and you had triples in Litecoin.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Litecoin trade was definitely something that surprised me a lot.
Yeah, I kind of noticed the pattern was showing more relative strength during that sideways time frame. Do you trade altcoins? And there's so many of them, Sonic. How do you know? How do you filter them out? How do you know what to even? I'm looking at your screen here, so I'm thinking a lot of these are altcoins. How do you know what's just hype, just part of a fad? And I kind of compare these to like bulletin board stocks or pink sheet stocks where, you know, there may not be much of a fundamental story right away, but what they do is they have IR guys, investor relations guys, that, you know, pay people to actually bring volume into their shares. Does that happen with altcoins, and how do you know which ones are for real?
Well, I think to a certain extent it happens with altcoins, but obviously the market is a lot smaller than, you know, the traditional markets. But I do trade altcoins, but really have scaled back all of my exposure to altcoins over this, like, you know, past year or so. I've been really just focusing on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, you know, Bitcoin Cash, like all of the ones that are having the most trading action, and the ones that I can trade both sides on. Okay. So I like to be able to hedge a position if I get in on a long or something like that, and that I think that that's just, it's helped me to really manage risk in any, you know, scenario. Okay. So for altcoins, that was kind of like how I started, and I was going into these really speculative ones, the ones that, you know, like you said, it's like, you know, they're very, they seem sketchy. Okay.
Let me ask you this, you know, everyone, you know, trading's easy when everything is going well. I think the rubber meets the road when you're in a drawdown. Okay, because, you know, a lot of trading's in your head. And when you're in a drawdown, there are a lot of things going on psychologically with you. Absolutely. First of all, what was your biggest drawdown? And what kind of self-talk did you give yourself to continue on after it?
Well, I think that my biggest drawdown was after the bubble popped. Okay. And I was still trying to apply my old methods to a market that had changed. So I was trying to, you know, like buy and play the bounces, and then the bounces weren't going as high and just dropping straight through the floor. So I think that after I left my trading balance, I lost like pretty much the majority of it, like 90% drawdown on what I had left in my account.
Okay. And at least you were smart enough to pull equity, so it wasn't a disaster. Right. Oh, and I remember what you told me. You said after that, you stopped trading for a while.
Yep, I stopped trading, and I just kind of decided to go into, you know, hermit mode, study my ass off, so that whenever I go and I put my money back in, I can, like, you know, put in a small amount and then build it up and get confidence, and then start to, you know, build size. Okay. So that was something that was really important. I think whenever I lost everything, you know, that I had left in my trading account, it was kind of like an eye-opener.
You reassessed and you went back to the drawing board, and, you know, that's actually a very good solution, because trading after an emotional experience like that is not easy. Because then you're trading out of weakness and fear, instead of, okay, Mr. Market, I've done my work, prove me wrong. You know, instead you're saying, I hope this one works, right? Right. And I could only say it because I've heard it in my own head. So taking a break is a great idea if you're going through a difficult time frame, and going back to the drawing board. That was a great answer. In fact, you know what? You've had a lot of pearls here, Mr. Stuntman. I think your biggest stunt that you ever did in your life was making the transition from, you know, putting your body at risk to putting your wallet at risk and making it work for you. I want to congratulate you on that.
Yeah, that was definitely a great decision. I've had a lot of fun learning about trading and getting, you know, so many different qualities to this business remind me of like what I was always attracted to in the first place, which was kind of risk and like managing risk and managing emotions within the risk. So like that had always been a part of like the way I see things. Like whenever I was, you know, kid and being like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool to film me jumping from this building to this building. But the process behind doing that is a lot more emotional and a lot more about calculation than people from the outside are just thinking I'm some idiot like doing this jump and you know.
Yeah, you're planning it.
Yeah, it was all planned.
That takes a plan too. Do you have any kind of business model? Are you teaching people? What are you doing now on social media? You put out ideas, share ideas, or are you just mainly trading your own account?
I just trade my own account, and I really just try to share my ideas on Twitter. I don't really have like a business with trading yet, but maybe one day. I think that really at this point, I'm just kind of really trying to gain experience and get better as a trader. I'm always trying to be more precise with what I'm looking at on the charts and my entries and exits. And it's one thing to chart it and like to have my levels work out, and then it's another thing to trade it like really well. So
it sure is. So there's a difference between analysis and trading, isn't there?
Yes, exactly. So getting that down is constantly, it's like a sharpening of the blade kind of thing I think of. So at this point, all I'm doing is just trading and sharing my ideas on Twitter. I have a good time, like kind of reading other people's ideas and thinking about like, what other people are seeing, because we're all kind of looking at the same charts, right? Like Bitcoin is really my driving attention, because I think that really we're being led by Bitcoin in the rest of the market. So if I'm kind of on par with what Bitcoin's doing, then I can predict to a certain extent like how the rest of the market will start to play.
All right, well then let me ask you the big question. Bear market rally or the beginning of a new cycle that's going to take us above last year's highs?
Okay, so for that question, I want to talk about like the macro picture. So let's see, I'll put this on here. I love this chart, and I'm sure you've probably seen something like this before, but it's like Bitcoin's whole entire lifespan.
Right.
I'll put it on weekly so that we can see the structure a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I do think that this is why I'm kind of unsure at the point that we're at right now at this weekly resistance.
Yeah.
Because the last time that we went into, I marked off these time zones where there was like the bottom before the next halvening. So the fundamental analysis of Bitcoin is every 4 years there's a halvening on the mining rewards. So Bitcoin is, and so every 4 years the reward or the supply gets sort of cut, and that's what drives demand. So if you look,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, if you look historically at Bitcoin's whole entire cycle, the best time to be buying Bitcoin was the year before the halving. So November 2012, we had the halving, and it went from $9 to $1,200.
Yeah.
And then we had the next halving was in July 2016, and we went from $500 to $20,000. So here it's like, I'm just looking at the trend on the macro picture, and here we're getting to that point where we're getting close to how every single cycle beforehand had bottomed before the next halving. So if we look at this in comparison, it looks very similar to here. So if we are at that resistance point, like I was showing on the weekly earlier, and it does get rejected, it could play out very similarly to the last time it bottomed. Now, it doesn't have to play out like that at all. We might bust out and then just move sideways along that $6,000 support level, and then sort of
until the halving. And the next halving is due when, in 2020?
Yes, it's in the 25th of May 2020. So like right now, like the way I look at Bitcoin is to just try to get as much as I can before then. So like playing all the markets, I think that this year has been sort of an interesting time, because when we were in this bottom area, I was looking at all markets as an opportunity to gain more Bitcoin. So I was trading like the S&P to earn Bitcoin. Like I shorted the top of that pretty good, but then it bounced so hard, so I got out like with good profits. But trading too big.
All right. Well, I've interviewed a lot of crypto guys. You're the first one that brought up this concept of halving. So what a pearl. And I'm really glad that I reached out to you, Sonic. And like it or not, you're now my new trading warrior brother.
I like it. Thank you very much.
All right, and please let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.
I plan on moving to the Caribbean next year myself, so maybe we could have a some type of tropical drink and talk markets someday. And before that, I'd love to have you back on, and I really appreciate it. I learned from you today. That's always our goal here in FACE, is to build up and edify traders. And you may focus on crypto, but you have skills. And what an interesting story. You're the first stuntman I've ever talked to before or interviewed. And again, I think your greatest stunt was the transition from being a stuntman to being a trader, and really, it's not an easy thing to do, and you need to be mentally tough, and you are, bro. Okay.
Awesome. I had a great time.
All right. So everyone, the best way to follow Sonic is at Satoshi Sonic, Michael.
Yep.
Michael Beatty's asking at Satoshi Sonic. So at the speed of sound. Just think about it.
Exactly.
All right, buddy. Well, good hunting, and thank you so much for being here with us on Turnaround Tuesday. And I'll be in touch soon. The video is going to be great. It should be out in a few hours. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. You're very welcome, Sonic. So that's it, everyone. That's Turnaround Tuesday. Remember, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. You're welcome, Alina. And we'll see everyone Wednesday. Good hunting. Adios. Thank you, Sonic. I just heard a boom.